there guys, so for today's video I was actually sitting here trying to brainstorm what I was going to record to go up this week for you guys, and I was thinking like, okay, maybe I'll do like 50 things I don't buy anymore since becoming a minimalist, or 5 things that I'm actually not minimalist about, maybe in comparison to others. And I was sitting here looking over at my kids' little desk over there, and I saw that they still had their Legos out. They didn't put them away before going down for a nap. And so I was like, oh, I should put those away before I record, just so they're not out in the background. And then I thought, why don't I do a video on my opinion of forcing minimalism on kids, or over forcing it, I should say. This is really just my personal opinion on it. If you disagree, that's totally fine. Your thought process on this and what you find best for your family may be completely different from me, but I did want to talk about how I personally feel about this, and if I can find anything factual to also back up what I'm saying opinion-wise, I will link down below if there's like child psychologists or something like that. Purposefully, I left out the Legos, and we're gonna talk about minimalism and kids, but specifically about over forcing it on them. I think it goes without saying that, you know, when we decide to live a minimalist lifestyle, we are the parent and they are the kids, and ultimately everything that comes into this house and everything that leaves this house is up to us. It's not up to our kids in the grand scheme of things. Now, of course, I try to be respectful of my kids and their wishes and their wants and their interests. And so, yes, I ask them before we get rid of things, before, you know, birthdays and Christmas come up, I ask them their opinion on things that they might want. So from a respect standpoint, yes, I do bring my kids into the decision making, but overall, I am the ultimate decision maker, me and my husband are, when it comes to things that come in and leave this house. However, with that said, our kids are in our house for 18 years on average. And that's a long time. That is their prime years of developing into the person that they're going to be as an adult. And so it's very important how you decide to lead them and how you push minimalism on them. So one of the biggest things I have a problem with when it comes to minimalism and your kids is basically choosing for them everything that they'll have or they're allowed to have, and bringing it down to such bare options that they're almost not allowed to be their own person. So like when it comes to their bedrooms, and you know, my aesthetic is not the same aesthetic as my kids. They want some color, but then I also know that cognitively speaking, and this came straight from my daughter, my oldest daughter, I've talked about before, she has sensory issues, and she actually did occupational therapy for quite a while when she was younger. And one thing that her occupational therapist actually told me was that it was really good for kids to not have super bright rooms full of tons of stuff, because yes, kids need color and they need all of that for brain development, but when they're sleeping, they should be sleeping. That's when their brain needs to shut off. And so when there's tons of stuff in the room and a lot of bright, loud colors, it makes it harder for their brain because their brain is just constantly stimulated and it's not able to shut down and rest and relax. And so that was one thing that she had noted about Revelyn's room, because it was pretty much just white and a few toys that had some color in them, that she actually really liked that because it allowed for her space to be a place that she could actually relax and focus on her toys, because her actual room wasn't super bright and she didn't have too many toys, so when it was bedtime she could relax, calm down, and go to sleep. So that's when it came in. If you guys missed my room reveal that I did for my older girls, I will link it up above. So that's when I came in trying to figure out, how can I make this space something that they will enjoy, but also won't be a disservice to them when it comes time to sleep. So when I came up with the design process of it, I wanted to bring color into the room, but not too much. So I kept it with like pastel colors, nothing too loud and bright, and still tried to keep the room fairly just relaxing with the color palette. So it's finding the happy medium of figuring out how you can let them have their own personality, their own style in their bedrooms, but also making sure that like cognitively you're giving them the best setup that they can to get a good night's sleep, because ultimately it is a room where they're supposed to sleep. So like that's just in regards to their bedroom, obviously. But as they get older, they're going to want certain things, and there's going to be things that you know, you as a minimalist might be like, well, we don't need that. But they're also growing, learning, and this is when really teaching your kids not so much just like that we don't need things, but why society makes us feel like we need them. So instead of just saying like, well, you don't use that, it's more teaching them the aspect of consumerism and why society makes us feel like we need these things, and why and what kind of positives it can have on your child's life for them if they don't have so many excess things. So when I notice something in my kid's life that I know that they like, but they haven't really been purposefully using, I will go about it a totally different way than just being like, you don't use this, packing it up in a bag and taking it away. That is setting your child up for actually gaining some hoarding tendencies because they just constantly see their things taken away. So for instance, Revlin had an ice cream truck that she got for Christmas a couple years ago, and she loved it, played with it a ton in the beginning, but as she got a little bit older, she slowed down playing with it and it just sat there. She would set it up if it was messed up and then she wouldn't play with it. And so it was something that I noticed she wasn't really purposefully playing with anymore, and although she liked it, it wasn't serving her a purpose like it was in the beginning when she first played with it. So I didn't just walk in there and say, hey Rev, you haven't been playing with this, so I'm gonna take it away and we're gonna get rid of it. Instead, I talked with her and I said, hey, have you noticed that you haven't really been playing with this as much lately? And you know, she'd say yeah, and I'd say, what would you think about packing it away for later? So that's one thing too, is I didn't get rid of it because I knew it was an item specific. So like there'll be some items that they're growing out of, and so you would talk through this differently, but this particular item I knew that she was kind of at an age right now where she would actually play with it more when she's older, because it was designed to play with like the American Girl dolls, which she has one of those, not American Girl, but the Our Generation ones. So I knew she would play with it again later, so I wasn't going to completely get rid of it, but I needed to work with her on getting it out of her room and putting it away into storage. So I talked with her about how, you know, how she would feel about taking it out of her room and putting it away. And of course, at first she was like, no, I don't want to do that. She kind of got a little bit upset, and I was like, okay, you know, we'll talk about this later. So it took a couple weeks of just having conversations about it until she was like, yeah, we can take it out of the room. And I got her to agree to just put it in the hallway. So it wasn't out of sight. When she walked out of her room, she saw it there, but it went by for a couple weeks and she didn't play with it, but it was just sitting in the hallway. And that is when I went ahead and took it and put it upstairs. And she never even asked for it, didn't look for it, nothing, but I allowed like the process to happen, and her agreed to let it come out of her room. I didn't force that decision on her, which you can see because I had several conversations for a couple weeks before it even came out of her room. So really teaching your kids about true minimalism, living intentionally, getting away from consumerism, it is a long process. It can be a stressful process because kids are kids, and especially with other kids around them having a ton of things, they're not necessarily gonna understand right away. And so if you really wanna teach your kids, you know, about why society makes us feel like we need these things, and when things have served us a purpose and no longer are, why we should maybe put them away to take them back out later, or we should give them to someone else who it can serve a purpose for. That's a big thing that we focus with our kids, is the fact that the things that they're giving away will go to somebody who it will serve a purpose for and who will enjoy it again. And that helps them a ton. So I know that this video is a little bit rambly, but I just want to talk about why it's so important when you're going on your minimalism journey is, and I've talked about this in I think my 5 tips for beginners, is not forcing it on those around you. I think that I was mainly speaking in terms of like your spouse, if they themselves are not totally on board, is showing through example. It goes with your kids too, is showing them through example why you know, we don't need these things, and not over forcing it on them, because it can really have a negative impact and cause them to take on more hoarding tendencies as they get older, because they just see their things being taken away and they're not given any say in it. It's important to know that every single person's journey to minimalism is different, and not just like every family is different. Every individual in that family is going to be different how they go on that journey. My husband, I would say, is a little even more ahead of me in our minimalism journey. He's constantly like, let's just get rid of it all, and I'm like, hold on, like we'll slowly take it there. I feel like one day we could definitely end up like extreme minimalists. We've actually been talking about tiny house living, just so we can get on like more property, and then when our kids are older, we'll build a bigger house on that property. Even though each family takes different journeys, each individual in that family is going to take a different journey as well, and that includes your kids. Just put yourself in the other person's shoes. If they were the one going on this minimalist journey and they were ridding things, but you weren't quite ready yet, of course you would want them to be respectful of the fact that it's going to take you longer to process this, and especially kids who are younger, don't fully understand. They can't just look, they can't watch a video like this and be like, oh, light bulb, I get it, and let go of things. That's not how kids work. You know, it takes a long time for them to learn these things, and especially to learn that they don't need things, because inherently I think that humans just feel like they need everything because of everything in society around them and their friends and all the toys that they have when they go over to their house. Everything, pretty much everything, is working against them to think the opposite of what you're trying to instill in them. I let my kids have Legos, and they have things that will cause messes, but we teach them the art of cleaning things up, toy rotation, and ultimately not actually having like an abundance of things with a million different pieces. You know, like down here, all we really have is Legos that's accessible all the time, because our closet has toys that they can take out for like special occasions. But we have like Legos over there, we have Billabos with Schleich animals, and I think that's actually it. Besides up there, that basket right there is all the toys for my youngest. She's almost 9 months. That's the only thing that's actually always accessible out here for them. And then going back to birthdays and Christmas, that's a big reason why I love the 4-gift rule. I see a lot of people, and it honestly kind of scares me, talking about like on minimalist Facebook groups where they'll be like, okay, my kid's birthday is coming up, I'm not gonna get them anything. They're just going out to dinner and that's their gift. And I'm just like, I don't personally think that that's the right way to address minimalism and to teach your kids. I almost kind of think it's mean, and that could be coming from someone whose love language is gift giving, and that's a big thing to remember too, is knowing your child's love language, because if their love language happens to be gift giving and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, for your birthday and Christmas you're getting nothing, you're just gonna go out to dinner and that's it, that could really hurt them and make them feel unloved. So that's another thing, is making sure that whoever in your family that you're dealing with, that you're handling it properly. Because like for me, yes, gift giving is my love language, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to give me something like elaborate. Like my husband could write me a really nice love letter, and that would be like gift giving for me. So you just have to figure out how you can do that. Like for instance, with kids, you could at least buy them an experience, you know, going to a theme park if they're older, or taking them to a museum if they're a little bit younger, like a science museum, something that is fun and hands-on for them. But you know, just taking them out to dinner isn't quite the same thing. So there's things that I see like that I'm just like, that's a little worrisome to me. And that's why I love the 4-gift rule, because it allows me to get my child something that I know they want, because it's something you want, something you need, something to wear, and something to read. So Revelyn, she really wanted that rainbow pillow for Christmas, and you know, for the extreme minimalist, they'd be like, well, no, I'm not buying my kid that. But that's something she wanted, and I wanted to respect that there is something that she wanted, and it made her put a lot more thought into what she would use, and she still uses it. She actually sleeps with it, like, whoop. She actually sleeps with it around her head, kind of like Queen Amidala. And so she lays on her pillow at night and then puts the pillow right there. It's pretty funny. But she loves it, and I feel like she appreciates it a lot more because she really had to think about what she wanted for Christmas. And like, you know, same goes for their birthday. It teaches a lot more long-term. That for me is what parenting is about. Is teaching them to really appreciate the things that they do have, teaching them delayed gratification, but also ultimately teaching them that through the process of us being minimalists, that I'm respecting their own personal individuality as well. So I know this video was a little bit rambly, but I really wanted to talk about it, especially because sometimes I do get comments of people concerned about minimalism and if I'm pushing it on my kids. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and how you can make sure that you can still live intentionally, teach your kids to live intentionally, but do it respectfully, of course. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a big thumbs up, and I will see all of your wonderful faces in my next video. Bye.